While we sleep, the guardians of the night take to the streets, having said goodbye to those they love. Each other knowing they may never say these words again, they face the evil that we run from. They dedicate their lives to those that would hate them because they wear the badge. They wear the badge not for the glory or recognition, but because they were born to honor the thin blue line. This is the LEO First Podcast. We'll talk to the men and women in law enforcement, those that have retired, and anyone who's impacted by law enforcement. We'll peel back the curtain, and you'll get the real stories. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Every law enforcement officer has a story to tell. Get ready to hear from the men and women who put their lives on the line every day for their communities and their country. Welcome to the LEO First Podcast. Now, here's your host, Michael Laidler.
Hey everybody, it's Michael Laidler, your host of the LEO First Podcast, and this episode will be a solo episode because what I want to talk about tonight is something that I want to explain or kind of go over, because there's so many times that I know when I bring on guests, I get their views and I add to what they're talking about, but I really want to hone in my own experience and education and beliefs on what transpired last month in Illinois. And that's what happened. And it's what happened between Sonya Massey and Sean Grayson. Now, just based on the video I saw, it didn't look good. It didn't seem like it was justified. It didn't seem like it was necessary. And I know over the next few months, if not next year, that video will be dissected by people who look at videos all the time. So for me, I'm not really going to get into that side. I want to get more into the officer's mindset leading into that kind of situation, because there's so many times that we try to pass the blame to either the agency or the people around a person when they pull the trigger or make a decision that seems not right. And first and foremost, when we look at any police officer, no matter if you consider them good or bad, I was looking up a study and I just wanted to kind of frame how many instances police go through things and we really don't know about it. So one of the stats that I pulled was in 2023, there were over 50 million police calls for service in the U.S. I know those are a lot of calls for service, and it's kind of interesting. You're like, man, I don't see the police officer that many times, but that means that other people are calling them. The second stat, which I believe really highlights that 50 million police calls, is there was approximately 1,000 police-involved killings. So I'm not a math major, and I'm not going to force you to do math, but that's less than 1%. That is a number that we think is higher. Obviously, on the media side of it, it seems like we get in shootings more than we get in anything else, or we're taking the lives of others more than we're doing anything else, and that's far from the truth. Law enforcement at all levels, whether it's a police officer, a sheriff deputy, a border patrol agent, federal corrections, state corrections, county jail, state trooper, whatever level you are in, you're finding yourself dealing with more non-fatal calls, non-lethal calls, non-use of force calls than you are actually going through that length. And I could tell you, I'm hitting 20 years come January, and most of you know my experience ranges from being a police officer, being a border patrol agent, working in federal correction in multiple states, and I've been fortunate enough that I've never had to pull the trigger. However, I responded to a lot of calls for service. In other words, not every call results in a fatality. Now, there's been instances where people's lives were taken, or they took their own before I got there, or I was investigating the aftermath, but it's not very often that law enforcement personnel find themselves in a situation where they have to take someone else's lives. So thinking about all of that, and as we continue on with what happened with Sonya Massey and Sean Grayson. Needs to say, in his career, he has seen a lot of instances already. And when you see so many things happen to you, and I know people have talked about his past as far as like he was, I think that someone said he had a DUI or something like that, or he was fired or dishonorably discharged from the military. Yes, that's all a lot of stuff that goes on. But at the end of the day, just being once you get into that role, however you got there, you still go through a lot and you experience a lot of things and hardships that not your average citizen experiences. I can tell you just the various levels of law enforcement that I have been in, your mind shift changes. And sometimes you have a mindset where you're thinking, hey, I'm going to get shot every day. Other mindset is, I hope I don't fall out of this chair today. So for police officers, especially anybody that works patrol or even correctional officers that work in the housing units or dorms with inmates, it's a non-stop grind with stress. It's a non-stop pressure to your mind. So when I look at this situation and I think to myself, how did we get to a point that Sean Grayson in his mind formulated that the best decision for him to go through right now or at that moment was to pull the trigger and take this woman's life. And those are the things that I really want people to get to for any police officer out there. Once again, I am not condoning anything he did, but I am offering and explaining and educating that law enforcement deals with a lot. There's a study by the FBI Law Bulletin that I reference heavily through a lot of my presentations. And I think the number is a little bit lower, but for the sake of that particular study, it says that in a law enforcement officer's career, they experience 178 critical incidents versus the non-law enforcement officer who experiences 2 to 3. So when we look at any given day in a law enforcement, police officer, border patrol agent, correctional officers day at work, they are experiencing a lot. And I could tell you in the last decade or so, I spent a lot of time working in prisons, and there was and I am really chuckling. There was many weeks and days where I saw inmates getting stabbed by each other, and it was almost a normal thing that we were in a mindset like, okay, this inmate just stabbed another one. Okay, well, what's for lunch? Or you know what? What's going on next shift? Let's keep it moving because it almost becomes a norm. And I will tell you, it is not normal. It is not normal to see those kind of events and just go wash your hands and start eating your peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And for all those that eat PB&Js, I still eat them. I like them. I might even eat one tonight once I'm done with this podcast. But the frame, the amount of stress that people go through, especially in the law enforcement industry, it's hard to measure because a lot of times when we see people, especially in law enforcement, we see them at the moment that crisis has hit and taken a maximum toll on them. And I truly believe whatever Sean Grayson had going on in his life, he was at a boiling point mentally that whether whoever did or did not address it should have. And I definitely put it on him as a person because one of the things that I have really grown to appreciate over the last couple of years is self-awareness and understanding what I need. Now, not every situation allows it, not every chemical in your brain allows it, but I do place a lot of pressure on myself to continuously get better through personal growth, development. And when I see situations like Sean Massey, or excuse me, Sean Grayson, and I don't know why I always mix those names up, but when I see Sean Grayson making a decision that he did, it makes me disappointed that he wasn't able to find himself in a better situation mentally because I truly believe, and this is a belief, there's no way for me to measure it or guess it. I believe that if he was in a better state of mind, he may have not made the decision that he did. Now, I could be completely off. Maybe he went into that house thinking that he was going to take her life. Maybe he was thinking that night when he got to work that he was going to take someone's life. I don't know. But I'm going based on the laws of averages. I told you guys early when the show started that police officers in the US have responded to over 50 million calls. And that's just really measuring police. We're not even probably looking at other industries with that study. And only 1,000 of them, only 1,000 of them have resulted in police involved killings. No matter how you want to measure that number, it shows that not every day people are getting involved in it. When I look at Sean Grayson, I keep going back to how did he get to the point? How did we miss it as leaders that he would make a decision like that? Because it was, and this is once again, this is my opinion. Like I said, there's going to be people that break down the video a lot more than I will, but to make that decision in that moment, I always look at the person's mind. And that's why people like myself and other trainers that I have worked with, other companies that do a really good job, we always want to address and improve someone's mindset because we know, especially from personal experience, how much stress someone's going through. And whether you know it or not, when that officer walks into your house in a uniform on, you don't know how much baggage he or she is carrying for whatever's been going on in their life, whether it's professionally or personally. However, we want them to put on a mask and hide everything they have going on. And that's just not possible. That's it's so tough to do. And so many of us think we can fake it till we make it. But when you fake it till you make it and you have a mindset that you're going into telling people that I know I'm having a bad day and all these errors, I'm just going to hide it and deal with it later, you're always going to find yourself up to a boiling point. And that's why there's so many organizations and great agencies like North Miami, for example, that's really focusing on and pushing people to get involved in therapy. Now, if you know me and you've listened to my podcast, and hopefully you've listened to at least one, especially over the last probably 10 to 15 episodes, I'm involved in therapy myself because I love the opportunities to work on myself at a different level. There's only so many things that books can help you do. There's only so many things that your friends can help you do. I truly believe that anybody that's in law enforcement, and I say anybody, I don't care if you're a rookie in the academy. I don't care if you've been on this job for 30 years and you're a warden. It doesn't matter to me. You should be having some type of therapy because all the environments that we're walking into, whether it's jails, prisons, working on the streets, dealing with isolation on the border, whatever it is, it's not normal. But to help it get back to a normal median, therapy can help you there. Now, the flip side to that, and I'm not going to talk too much about it on this episode, but I do want to highlight some of the things that have been coming up in my presentations, in my keynotes, is people are worried that once they admit that they have some kind of mental illness or they need therapy, that now they're being labeled by whatever organization, agency they work for. And I don't really know a true solution to that because I look at things like litigation and lawsuits, and I can only imagine the angle that a lawyer will take to help their client win money and win their case. So at the end of the day, I tell people, all that aside, I'd rather you be here with me defending yourself in court rather than me having to visit your gravesite because you allowed the stress of everything going on in your life to make you want to take your own. Let me say that again because I know I talk fast. I would rather us be in court, myself or you or whoever, and have to deal with the consequences of a lawyer or administration getting on you because you chose to go to therapy rather than you don't because you're worried about a stigma that might be associated with your name. And I can tell you at the end of the day, if you're not taking care of yourself, nobody else will. Nobody will hold your hand when you're sitting up there and struggling, and when you're looking at your gun, looking at the barrel, or you're looking at those pills, or you're looking at that knife, or you're thinking about slitting your wrist or your neck, whatever that might be, you have to face the demons, but you don't have to face them alone. And a lot of people get worried that they can't get another job. I'm going to tell you something right now. Law enforcement is so short staffed. You can pretty much get a job anywhere. As long as your credit's right and you're not in trouble. Let's go back to Sean Grayson. There's rumors that, I don't know, was third or fourth job. So obviously there's jobs out there. I mean, you can go pull up, if you're looking for a government job, go to usajobs.gov. Or if you're just looking to work in a city, whether it's municipality or the county, or find a state job, everybody is hiring. And now, don't get me wrong, there's some agencies like Albany, Washington, that are doing a real good job with hiring, and they're staffed at nearly 100%, if not more. But the other billion agencies around this country and around this world need people. So if you believe that the stress of the job is going to impact you to where you cannot seek help, then you're already losing the battle. If you say, man, I am burned out, this is really tough, I hate what I'm doing, that is a sign. If you ever find yourself saying that, you need to go seek help. And you might say, well, Michael, I can get over it. You think you can, but there's a lot of studies coming out nowadays that you really can't. And a lot of times we think it's the new generation that can't handle the stress, but there's studies out there right now that's saying that people in their 30 and 40s with anywhere from 10 to 15 years are the ones that's struggling. And why? It's because there's been a boiling point of stress that has built up, and now the water is literally boiling over, and we think that we could just push it under the rug until we leave. And sometimes you have to realize that your mindset, your well-being is more important than any agency out there. Now, I'm not saying that you don't do your job. I am not saying that at all. I'm not saying that you don't follow the rules, but I am saying that if you find yourself struggling mentally, you need to seek help, because if you don't, you're only harming yourself and those around you. Because if you're not at full capacity and full potential because your mind keeps reliving past events that are not addressed, then you're not doing the greatest of service to them. So for me, when I look once again at this incident that happened in Illinois between Sean Grayson and Sonya Massey, I really look and try to figure out, how do we prevent things like that happening mentally? That a person who is going through a lot of stress, just let's just say on the job, we don't even have to look at his life, just on the show, they get to the point to where they're like, I want to shoot somebody, or I'm going to shoot somebody that may not be posing the danger that I've been trained to perceive. And once again, I don't know what he perceived, because I wasn't in his mind, I wasn't in his eyes, I wasn't in his ears, and none of us was. Now, a lot of us are going to Monday morning quarterback, and that's what we do. And based, like I said, I didn't think it was justified, but I don't know what's going on in his brain. And truth be told, I don't want to know what's going on in his brain, truly, because whatever it is, to me, it wasn't right. So for anybody listening, when we're looking at these cases, the Sean Massey's, oh gosh, you guys, I know y'all gonna cancel me. The Sean Graysons, the Sonya Masseys, when we're looking at cases like this, the George Floyds, the Breonna Taylors, all the ones that we see that we wondered what made them make that decision, let's now wonder why we aren't working on ourselves to keep our mind right for when we approach these type of situations, whether it's professionally or personally, because the last thing I want to see or read or hear is that any of you took your life because the days were just too tough. And I have had friends that have done that, and I wish I was equipped with reading them or figuring out a way to help guide them away from choices like that. We have to take care of our minds if we're going to be able to take care of others. If you don't want it, at least do it for yourself, do it for others, because we're all leaders with or without a title. But if we're not working on our mindset on a continuous basis, we're going to find ourselves getting to that boil point that we can't return from. And through all the stressors that law enforcement has, it's easier to get there than the regular average person. And then your family's going through it as well. So let's make sure we're getting help. Let's make sure that we're recognizing the warning signs of ourselves, especially if we're trying to help others out, because if we can't see it in ourselves, we're going to miss it in other people. And I hate to tell you, if you have some red flags of your own right now and you try to address someone else's, don't think they're not going to know about your red flags. And don't be surprised that they're not receptive because you're not addressing yours. Now, if you're addressing them and you're doing the best, that's one thing because you got to at least try. But if you're not at least trying to guide yourself past that point of working and overcoming your own red flags, then it's never going to be a way for you to help others. I want to thank each of you for listening. I thank you for taking the time out of your day, your night, your shift to listen and understand that your mind is extremely important. And the more you work on it, the better you will be. If you need anything from me, if you need direction on where to go, or you need guidance on anything I've talked about, especially when it comes to mindset, please reach out. You know, you can always find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, which I'm really pushing Instagram right now, YouTube, my email, my website, whatever that is. Some of you have my cell phone number. If you want it, DM me, I'll send it to you. But I truly believe that you guys and gals have the capacity to be in the best mindset all the time. It just takes time and effort. And it takes you to slow down to get there. Once again, thank you for your time. And if I have not spoken to you lately, please reach out. I'd love to see how you're doing. Enjoy your day, enjoy your night, and be safe.
You've been listening to the LEO First Podcast. Michael has been in law enforcement since 2005. He's worked for 3 law enforcement agencies in 3 different states. He's a professional speaker who travels the country teaching about leadership development and self-awareness. And he's the author of a book called Greatness Beyond the Badge: The 3 Key Principles for Self-Awareness. It's Michael's passion to bring law enforcement members' stories to the front, so you get the real and raw take. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. And we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with Michael on YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Michael Laidler, on Twitter at Michael A. Laidler, on Facebook at Michael Laidler Leadership. Send an email to michael@michaellaidler.com and hit the website at michaellaidler.com. See you next time on the LEO First Podcast.
Like that, I'm going to be leaving a note. Find vehicles, I can remove it.